Good evening, chaps. Thanks for spending your time to log on tonight. We're here to talk to you about becoming dads and surrogacy in the UK. To give you a little introduction, you've been looking at pictures of us for long enough now. I'm Rob. I am the clinic director here at Care London. I'm an embryologist, so I'm responsible for making lots and lots of babies in dishes and making lots of gay dads really, really happy. Okay, I'll talk to you a bit more about the IVF process later on, but I'll let Natalie introduce herself, as she's remarkable.
Hi, I'm not sure about that, but I'm Natalie Smith and I'm a trustee of Surrogacy UK. I think probably the best way to introduce myself is with a bit of a story. So if I take you all the way back now to 2008, and that's the year that myself and my husband got married. And a bit of background, back then we were looking out and researching for our own surrogacy journey. And we were just starting to get really serious about it. We'd done lots and lots of research, got all the facts. And I remember it really clearly. It was one of those really horrible, cold, rainy nights. And I was in the pub with my best friend, having a glass of wine and telling her all about it. And after I'd been speaking for about 10, 15 minutes, she looked at me and she said something that actually made me stop dead in my tracks, completely flabbergasted me. And she turned around and she said to me, Natalie, for the past, 10, 15 minutes, everything you said actually has been quite negative. And then the question that really kind of flabbergasted me was, she said, have you ever thought that this could actually be something really positive and, it could be a really positive experience? And I really remember that moment because up until then, it hadn't really crossed my mind. It felt like something that we just had to get through, an obstacle we had to endure if we wanted to become a family. And I think when you're starting out thinking about surrogacy, you hear a lot, you read a lot, you think the law, is it really complicated? How will we ever find a surrogate? If we find a surrogate, what kind of person will they be? Why are they doing this? Will they keep the baby at the end, after we've gone through all of this? And that can be so overwhelming. So if you kind of now fast forward 9, nearly 10 years ago, since that moment in the pub with my best friend, then you asked me kind of what my experience of surrogacy has been through, and actually all the people that I've seen go through surrogacy. And when I think about surrogacy, I think about friendship, I think about determination, I think about empathy, I think about altruism, and it really, really can be a positive experience. So I think for me, it's kind of a long introduction, but the thing that I really want you to get out of the webinar today are two things. First of all, that surrogacy in the UK, so without having to go abroad, is absolutely achievable. It's a really realistic goal and it does happen, and I'm proof of that. And secondly, that actually it can be a really positive experience, and you just need to come to things like this, get some information, find out where you can get help and support, and actually it can be a really wonderful experience.
Natalie, that is such a lovely story, and I've been so excited about tonight because Natalie is such a wonderful person. And she's got such a lovely story to tell. And working here at Care Fertility, it's so super to be a part of your journey, and hopefully you guys helping you become 2 men and hopefully becoming 2 dads. And it is such a wonderful thing. Please listen, stay on, enjoy the night. Okay, we'll start the presentation in a moment. But thank you for joining us.
One thing I should probably say as well is give you a little bit more information about me. So as you probably guessed now, I'm a mum through surrogacy. I've got twin girls who are now 6 years old. I'm also a trustee of Surrogacy UK, and as part of that role, I set up and I chair an organisation working group on law reform. And I also mentor a lot of same-sex couples as well. So at the moment, I've got 5 couples who I mentor, 2 of which are same-sex couples, and one of those couples is expecting a baby any day now. So hopefully I can bring a bit of experience from my own personal experience, but also from the organisation as well.
Super. So shall we crack on with the presentation?
Yeah.
Great. Okay then, guys. So that's us. Let's talk a little bit about our organisation. So Care Fertility is the largest provider of fertility treatments in the UK. We've helped hundreds of guys in your situation go through the surrogacy process. And I don't think anyone is as skilled and experienced as us in doing this kind of fertility treatment. And the reason we're here today with Natalie is because Surrogacy UK is a super organisation. Natalie, do you want to quickly mention anything about Surrogacy UK?
Yeah, so Surrogacy UK is a not-for-profit organisation. We help support people through a surrogacy journey. So we're a community of support of both surrogates and intended parents. We help surrogates and intended parents meet each other, form a team, and then we support them on their surrogacy journey. And actually, we also form a kind of lifelong membership as well. So we support people once they've had a family as well. So what's nice is when you come to some of our conferences, there's lots and lots of kids running around, there's people coming back. So we can really take you through every step of the journey.
Super. So tonight, me being a scientist, I'm not going to use too much jargon. I'll try and stay away from it. But intended parents are you guys, okay? You're the guys who are intending to become parents. So if we talk about intended parents or IPs, we're referring to you. When we refer to the wonderful woman who's going to carry the baby, she's the surrogate, okay? But you guys are going to be the intended parents. You're the ones who are going to have that baby at the end of the day. So a little bit about what we're going to be doing tonight. This is a myth-busting exercise, okay? We're going to be telling you all about the possibilities of doing surrogacy in the UK. You don't have to go overseas to do this anymore. Natalie will give you a little brief introduction to the process of surrogacy in the UK. I'll tell you about the bit I love, which is IVF, making your family, creating those embryos, why you should come and see me, and a bit about the costs associated with going through the IVF and the surrogacy process in the UK. Then Natalie will finish off telling you a little bit about the risks of going overseas and what they entail and why you should stay within the UK to go through your surrogacy process. So, why are we here now? Why are we talking about creating your family with surrogacy in the UK? Well, myself and the rest of the team here attend lots of gay events. We go to Pride. We've been at the Alternative Parenting Show. We've been talking to lots of dads. And the dads have all been talking to me about going to the States to start the surrogacy process, to start their family. And I look at them and think, what on earth? Why are you talking to me about this when surrogacy treatment in the UK can happen? It's simple, it's regulated, and it's really successful. Okay, so a little flavour of where we're going to go here and why we're doing this tonight. So, Natalie, go ahead. Tell the guys all about starting out the process of surrogacy in the UK.
Okay, so actually what might be quite nice, sorry, to start off with is to get a bit of a gauge of how people are feeling at the moment and about surrogacy. I know that when you start off in a surrogacy journey, it can actually feel really daunting, it can feel really confusing, and actually it can be really emotional. So what might be quite nice is if people use the message box and actually just put a few words about how they're feeling at the moment. And then maybe we can have a look at that and hopefully we can see if we've helped at all by the end of the webinar and see if any of those words are slightly different. So while people are typing up there, I'll just start on thinking about how you find out more what a good starting place is. So there are two types of surrogacy. One is called host surrogacy and one is called straight surrogacy. Host surrogacy is done through a clinic, so that's the surrogacy that we're going to focus on today. And that's where there is no genetic link between the surrogate and the child that she's carried. So in your case, in the case of same-sex couples, you'll be using a donor egg and sperm and then transferring that into a surrogate. And that will all take place at a clinic. Straight surrogacy is where there is a genetic link between the surrogate and the baby. So essentially she's donating her own eggs and then carrying the child herself as well. And that's often done through home insemination. And the next point on the slide is what motivates surrogates. And I think that is one of the biggest questions when you're starting out to look at this as a way of creating your family. Before I go into that, because that's something that I really want to concentrate on, how are we getting on with those comments on how people are feeling about surrogacy at the moment? So, unhopeful, so no hope is one of the ones that I see. I can completely relate to that. Don't know where to start, absolutely. Well, hopefully this is exactly where you should be for that, because this is where you should start. Getting excited but nervous. How much will it cost? Well, we'll cover that. Overwhelmed. Yeah. Well, I honestly can say I can relate to every single one of those experiences. And I think a little story just to bring a bit more context to that as well. When myself and my husband, so we've had the conversation in the pub, now fast forward a few months and we're sitting in the car, in a car park, just off a motorway junction, waiting to go to our first Surrogacy UK event. So we haven't really met or spoken to anyone properly about surrogacy. And there's probably two things you should know about me and my husband. Well, the first one's about my husband. He does not care what he wears. He wears shorts, flip-flops, and Star Wars t-shirts mainly, and that's it. And then one thing you'll find out about me through this webinar is I like to talk. So we're sitting in the car, and my husband is next to me, and he's got on what he had a fashion show last night to have his I'm a respectable potential parent outfit on. So there's my husband kind of feeling completely out of his comfort zone, all dressed up smart, and I've gone completely mute because of exactly all those emotions we just heard there, feeling completely overwhelmed, feeling nervous, thinking, actually, do I even want to walk into this room? What am I going to find? And hopefully you'll have a similar experience on this webinar, but by the end of that conference, by the end of stepping through those doors, within about 20 minutes, talking to people, thinking, actually, people instantly understand what we've been through here. And I think that's why it's so important to have a clinic with experience of surrogacy, because you want people who understand what you're going through, and to meet other people, to talk to people who've been through it. But we came out of that conference and actually our jaws were hurting from smiling, from talking so much, and sat in the car and actually had that kind of moment that actually this is a possibility, this could really happen for us. And it has. I'm now a mum to twin girls. So hopefully that kind of starting out process gives a bit of context and that we do understand that it's emotional. So moving on, what motivates surrogates in the UK? This was one of the biggest questions that we had when we were looking into surrogacy. And of course, there's so many different reasons why people become surrogates. Some surrogates just love being pregnant, but absolutely don't want any more of their own children. Many surrogates have seen their friends or a family member go through infertility, and it's really moved them. Some surrogates have watched documentaries on TV, and that's just resonated a bell with them. In our case, the lady who helped us was a lady called Jenny, and she had experienced herself 5 years of infertility between having her first and her second child. And during those 5 years of infertility, she went through that whole process of desperately wanting to have a child and not being able to. And when she came through it out the other end, she just decided that she absolutely had to help people if she could. And it sounds a bit unbelievable, but that is exactly what motivates them. So, and I think as well, when you go through surrogacy and when you're at that moment where you do become a dad, that's the moment that surrogates are doing it for. They're doing it to see the moment that you hold your baby and they think, do you know what, I did that. And it's this immense feeling of pride that they've achieved something so immense, they've helped create a family. And that is the common thread, really, that motivates surrogates.
Do you know, during the IVF process, we see very similar things. When you're here in the clinic with us, you're a team. And both of you together in theatre, when we're getting the embryos ready to put them back and you're all holding hands, it is just such a beautiful thing to see. There's all barriers are broken down. This is all about the three of you coming together just to create this family, and it is just such a wonderful feeling when I'm there with you all and we're all there together and we're about to start this awesome journey for you. Just the feeling, and you can cut it with a knife. Just a wonderful feeling going on in that theatre, and it's a beautiful journey, and it's a wonderful thing to embark on.
And actually, I remember when we were in the clinic having our embryo transfer, and they had a TV screen up, and we watched the embryos travel down the catheter and conception take place. Yes, it's not a traditional way of making a baby, but it's still really beautiful.
And do you know what? Only if you go through IVF, you're going to see your potential babies before they've even started life. And that's half the reason to go through the IVF process in itself. You get to see the first family picture to go in that photo album was when the baby was 5 days old. Or not even the baby, the embryo was 5 days old. And not many other people can say that.
For my children, I've actually got an email account for them that I send photos to, and I've sent them the picture of them as a 5-cell embryo.
That's wicked.
So yeah, they've got that for life. And so that's what motivates surrogates in the UK. In terms of finding a surrogate, there's a few different routes you can go. There's 3 main surrogacy organisations in the UK. There's Surrogacy UK, there's COT, and there's Brilliant Beginnings. They're all very different, so do your research, find out what works for you. I would say the thing that makes Surrogacy UK quite different is we're very much focused on relationships. So we don't match surrogates and IPs together, because you've got to know that you like each other. You've got to know that you can trust each other. And I guess it's a little bit like dating. We kind of allow you all to come together. We hand out profiles so you can read. You read about each other. You have diaries. You come onto the message boards and you just chat about what happens in EastEnders, who's on Strictly Come Dancing, and all that kind of thing. We do lots of socials, lots of face-to-face, lots of meeting, and you kind of choose each other. So I think that's where Surrogacy UK is a little bit different to some of the others. And then obviously the most important bit, choosing a clinic, which we're going to find out quite a lot about today.
Absolutely. So choosing a fertility clinic is really, really important. It's not just about going to one of the many fertility clinics in the UK. It's about choosing the ones that can specialise in surrogacy. It's a very complicated pathway, and it's very emotional. We're very fortunate. We have a wonderful team here who's able to support the journeys of the intended parents and the surrogates. It's really important you do your research, okay? I can't recommend our clinic enough. We've got a fantastic team behind us here. We'll hopefully give you the very best care that you're going to receive at any clinic in the UK. So let me tell you a little bit more about what happens here in the fertility clinic. So making the family, okay, starting the process, the geeky bit, all right, that's me, I'm the scientist. It's all about, guys, eggs and sperm. It's pretty basic. Obviously, all you guys logged in, we've got plenty of sperm going on. Not as many eggs going on, but that's fine. Give that job to me. I'll find you the egg donor, okay? You can use an anonymous egg donor. So us as a clinic will go out and recruit lovely altruistic women who will come in, donate their eggs to you for the similar reasons that the surrogate will want to carry the baby for you. Due to different restrictions, the surrogate in an IVF setting in this clinic cannot also be the egg donor. They have to be 2 separate people. So we let Natalie go and find you guys, the surrogates, okay? You build up that bond together. Whilst you're doing that, we're finding an egg donor for you, okay? In terms of sperm, now it's down to you guys. You need to decide which one of you is going to be genetic dad. What I'm afraid we can't do is create a bit of a cocktail here. We can't add both of you into the mix, give it a good old stir, and let nature decide which one of you is going to be dad. We need to know which one of you is genetic dad. Sorry, don't mean to be a party pooper. There's so much stuff that is out there, people saying you can do this, you can do that. Law in the UK is we have to know who is genetic dad. What that does not mean is that if we've got this egg donor, okay, and she donates, for example, 10 eggs to you guys, we can take 5, we can mix it with one of your sperm, we can take the other 5 and mix it with the other one of your guys' sperm. We can create embryos, which are the precursors to becoming a baby, and you guys decide which one you want to put back inside the surrogate. We can't put a mixture of one each back inside the surrogate because that's not on, okay? We have to know which one of you is the genetic parent. This is really, really important. However, once we've started that process, once we've got over that hurdle, which one of you is going to be genetic dad, once we've got the eggs, now we're going to bring them together, fertilise the eggs, and start the process of embryo development. Right, this next slide, I'm going to come onto it, it's going to start straight away. This is the coolest thing I'm going to show you tonight. This is the very earliest stages of human life. That is a human egg, okay? The 2 little dimples that have appeared in that egg now means it's fertilised successfully. What will happen is those will disappear in a minute and then the egg will divide. There you go, that's formed an embryo now. Okay, that's the start of life. That's a 2-cell embryo, most basic form. Now it's dividing quite rapidly. It's got 4 cells, then it will go on to 6 and then 8, and then it goes on to a different stage. What we do is we can put your embryos back inside the surrogate at any stage here. We can freeze them at any stage. We can stop development whenever we like, based on what you guys want us to do. However, if all's going well, decide which one of you is going to be genetic dad. We've got over that argument before we've even started this process. We'll let the embryos develop, and they'll keep on developing like this. You've got a little timer in the corner there. We're up to 100 hours now. We let them develop on for 5 days where we are now until they start forming, which it's doing now, this thing called a blastocyst. When the embryos develop this stage, game on. These have a really high chance of success. I'll come on to success in a minute, but this is the most advanced stage that we can get an embryo to. This is now looking for the surrogate. It wants to implant and start a pregnancy. Okay, that is where I'm going to cap it on the science. I'm not going to geek out anymore. It's pretty simple. All we need is eggs and sperm and a surrogate. I'll do the rest. All right? Okay, moving on. Let Natalie now really go into the details of surrogacy law in the UK.
Okay, actually, just one thing quickly it might be worth asking about. I know you said about freezing, and I think that's a really good thing to do as well, because while you're waiting to find a surrogate, it's really nice to feel that you're actually moving forward with the process. So while you're waiting for one part, you can start getting on with the other. So a lot of our couples do freeze embryos and then join the organisation, or join the organisation whilst they're in the process of IVF.
Yeah, it's getting over that mental barrier, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got to always be moving forward.
Yeah.
What we can do in the IVF setting is get the process rolling. We can make your family, and then we can keep it on ice. Really successful when you do that. Finding that surrogate can be a bit of a longer process. So start the process nice and early, get things going so you are taking a really proactive approach to this parenthood. And then when
you meet a surrogate, then you're ready to go as well, which is great. Some surrogates quite like couples to have eggs ready and frozen so that actually you can get going quite quickly.
We hear that quite a lot at the clinic. We do hear surrogates that when the couples have got frozen embryos, it's not a case, and it's not just a case of, right, we're good to go. Bit more difficult when we have a surrogate and we don't have frozen embryos. What we need to do is time the egg donor along at the same time with the surrogate. Bit more difficult to synchronise the whole cycle. It is so much easier, so much more successful if you create the embryos and you freeze them. It's a case of literally whipping one out of the freezer, thawing it out, popping it back, bingo. Okay, really successful.
And it's probably a lot less stressful for the intended parents, for you guys as well. I know that when we went through it, we kind of didn't want to be coordinating 2 cycles at the same time and all that stress. So there's options there. Okay, so surrogacy law, which is probably one of the big areas of questions that you've got. So first of all, surrogacy is legal in the UK. I know there's quite a lot of confusion, but it's absolutely legal, and it's a really good way to have a family in the UK. And there are a few things that you probably need to know, though, and get your head around. So the first one is that a surrogacy arrangement is not legally binding. So it cannot be enforced like a contract in a court of law. What that means is that actually you need to be very sensible about the way that you go around surrogacy, and you need to spend quite a long time building trust between the surrogate and the intended parent. And I know that can sound a little bit fluffy, all building trust and all this, but actually if you think about it, that is so important, because you want that really strong relationship between a surrogate and yourself, because this is your chance of experiencing pregnancy. Okay, experiencing it in a different way, but experiencing it nonetheless, and it is the pregnancy of your child. And having that close contact with a surrogate, having that trust is so important. And I know when we were pregnant, and I do say when we were pregnant because we were a team and we went through it together. So even though I was never pregnant, we did have a pregnancy. But I remember when we were pregnant, we even named our twins when they were in the womb, because we felt like we knew their personalities so well. Twin 1 was Cassia, and she was up at the top spinning around all the time. This is once they couldn't move anymore. And we just felt that was the right name for her. And Isabel was more chilled out at the bottom. So actually we'd chosen the names of the girls before we'd even seen them, because we did have that close bond, and because we did really feel like we knew them well. So I would say that it sounds a bit scary, but actually building up that really reciprocal, mutualistic, trust-based relationship is worth the investment. It will be much less stressful for you. It will be a much more positive experience. And, this is your experience. You've got to enjoy it, and to be there, to be part of it, to be seeing your surrogate regularly, to go to all the scans, that's what it's all about. So I think it sounds a bit scary, but if you do it in the right way, it's fine. And I must say, and this relates to the second point as well, that before we went to that conference that I spoke about earlier, before we stepped out that car park, our number one fear was, will the surrogate keep the baby? And fast forward to the end of that conference, so probably 6-7 hours later, we did stay for a few drinks at the end as well, and that fear had completely vanished, and it's something that we never thought about again. And I know that sounds scary, because if someone had told me before I went in there that I wouldn't feel that way anymore, I don't think I would have believed them. But going in, meeting surrogates, talking to people who've been through it, that is not why surrogates are doing surrogacy. They do not want another child. Jenny had 3 boys already. She did not want twins on top of that. And when you've got that bond, the bond is between the surrogate and the intended parents. It's not between the surrogate and the baby. And actually, even now, my relationship with Jenny, we've got a fantastic relationship still. She's one of my best friends. We go on girly weekends. We see each other with the kids. We see each other without the kids. And that bond is still between us, really. You know, obviously she likes the kids and everything, but the bond is still with us. So the surrogate is the legal mother at birth in the UK. So when a child is born through surrogacy, it is the surrogate, and if she's married, her husband, who are named as the legal parents. And the way that this is kind of remedied is that you apply for something called a parental order. And a parental order transfers legal parenthood from the surrogate and her husband to the intended parents. You absolutely have to apply for a parental order. It's really important because of all sorts of complications that can come up throughout a child's life and throughout your own life if you don't have that in place. It's a relatively simple process in terms of the legal process. You don't necessarily need a lawyer to go through it. We certainly didn't. It is quite a lot of admin, but it's pretty straightforward. There are a few conditions that you need to meet in order to be able to apply for a parental order. The first one is that you have to be domiciled in the UK. You have to have paid only reasonable expenses. Now that's another term that probably is worth focusing on for a moment. So reasonable expenses mean reimbursing any out-of-pocket costs that the surrogate may incur as a result of being pregnant or trying to get pregnant. So things like travel, maternity clothes, all the kinds of things like that, childcare. It means that really commercial payments would mean that you would have to go to high court rather than for the family court. So the condition of a parental order is reasonable expenses only. At least one of the IPs must be genetic related, which links to Rob's point earlier about knowing who the genetic dad is. And at the moment, you must be a couple to apply for a parental order. Now, that has been challenged in court, and the government is in the middle of amending that. And so the law is changing, and the timelines, we're not sure when, especially at the moment, with the election going on. But at the moment, you must be a couple. But if you are a single dad on this webinar, watch this space because things are changing.
Super. So one only thing I would add onto that is that there's a similar law surrounding the creation of embryos in this country. If you are going to create embryos, we cannot move them to another country where there are commercial surrogacy arrangements going on. When we create embryos, we're creating them under the law within this country. You can't then take them to another country, such as the States, or take them to Russia if you are actively going to go and use a commercial surrogate. That spend an excess rather than expense. You were spending $100,000 or something like that in a commercial surrogacy arrangement. We don't support that here in the UK. We don't believe it's ethical. This is why we're here to really myth bust and say that this all can be done in the UK. It's far more regulated, far safer, and really better for the surrogates for the reasons that they're going to be providing themselves for you.
And actually, that's a really good point as well, that there is another aspect. Even if you go, I think one of the myths about going overseas versus the UK is that the legal process will be easier, that you can go to California and you can be given a birth certificate with your names on. Now, what you don't hear so much about is actually when you come back to the UK, that law does not apply. So you still need to go through the exact same process in the UK. You cannot circumvent it. You must still apply for a parental order. But now, because you've gone abroad and because you've probably gone through commercial surrogacy, so those two reasons, you now will not be able to access the simple way of applying for parental order, which is through the family court. You'll now need to go through high court, you'll need to get a lawyer, you'll have a much more expensive and a much more complicated legal process.
It's really important.
So I think you need to be aware of that. If you think that you can circumvent that parental order process, you can't, unfortunately.
Okay, a bit about the process of forming a team.
Okay, so we've spoken quite a lot about surrogates, and I guess, we've gone through the medical process, so the next bit is, well, how do you actually find a surrogate? How do you form a team? The first thing is to join an organisation. I cannot tell you how important it is and how nice it is to meet people that are going through the same thing and just instantly understand what you're going through. Also, you're going to get a lot of checks and balances. So at Surrogacy UK, we have medical checks, we have criminal record checks. We do extensive interviews with surrogates and intended parents before they join. So you're really getting quite a secure environment. And also you're getting someone who will support you through each stage of the process. So once you've joined an organisation, then it's all about just trying to get to know a surrogate. So what will happen at Surrogacy UK is that you will join the message board. So there's a big online community. You will start going to socials and you will get your profile shared with all of the available surrogates. And through that process, hopefully a surrogate will offer to help you. There's a kind of etiquette in surrogacy that you don't ask for someone to help you. So you don't go to a social and go around surrogates saying, oh, can you help me? Choose me, choose me. That's not the way it's done. A surrogate will offer to help you. She'll do that through a member of the Surrogacy UK team. And you will get what we call the call, where someone says the surrogate would like to help you. And this absolutely has to be a two-way process. If you are not sure about the surrogate that's offered to help you, if something doesn't feel right, then you must say no. There is no pressure to go forward if you don't feel comfortable. And actually that would be one of my kind of pieces of advice, that go with your gut feeling on all of this. You know deep down what's right and what isn't, and listen to your gut feelings on it. We have a minimum 3-month getting to know you period at Surrogacy UK. So we ask that before you start any treatment, before you start trying to get pregnant, you spend 3 months just getting to know each other. Just kind of hanging out and meeting it with friends and families, going to the park, having pizza, watching TV, whatever you like doing, that's what you do for 3 months. And that's really nice because the pressure's off a little bit and it's just really about getting to know each other. And then once those 3 months have ended, you form an agreement. And we say agreement because, like I mentioned earlier, it's not legally binding. But what you really do need to do is still write down, have a written kind of statement of intent. And you go through all aspects of the surrogacy journey with an experienced mediator, talking about what kind of contact you want to have with each other, how many attempts you want before you kind of have another think, whether you have particularly strong views on smoking or what people should drink or eat, all those kind of questions, everything. Views on termination is really important. And what we're looking for here is that you're aligned. So that your surrogate and you, whatever those decisions are, there's a whole different range of things that work for different people, but you need to be on the same page. So you need to get that out there very, very early. Then once that's all happened, then you're free to start trying to get pregnant. TTC, as the lingo goes. I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about that. I guess we've kind of covered it with the video. But
yeah, absolutely. Once you form the team, it can take some time. If you've got your embryos frozen here with us, then it's a very straightforward process of just getting all of you in, just getting the embryos thawed out and put back. It's a really straightforward process, and it's a really quick one. So it seems like a very long process that we're talking about here, but it all takes place in synchrony together. Everything can be happening quite quickly. It all goes at the pace that you guys want to go, and no one's going to be rushing you. No one's going to be doing anything like that. It's all done, all under control by yourselves and your surrogate.
I'm guessing people might want to have a kind of idea about timelines. So it's quite hard for me to say that, because in a way, how long is a piece of string? It just depends on finding that right team, and you never know how many attempts it's going to take. But for example, I can give you my example as something to go on. So we joined Surrogacy UK in April 2009, and we had the offer to get to know from Jenny in the September or the November, and my twin girls were then born in January 2011. So it took us a few months to meet Jenny. We actually had a really long wait because our embryos were in quarantine. So that, and I don't know if that's still the case now. It was quite a long time ago when we did our.
The technology's changed a little bit now. We've got fancy blood tests we can do, so it can all be done fresh. So no quarantine period is required anymore.
Yeah. So there we go. Life's moved on since then. And so that's the kind of timeline. It can take anything from 6 months to 2 years. It really, there is no set answer. And then obviously once you're pregnant, I'm not going to touch too much on these bits. So I think for those of you sitting at home, that probably feels a million miles away. But still, it's good to have the information. So it's really important you work with the hospital. Just like with the clinics, you want to go and you want people to understand your situation and be sensitive and be positive about it. Because actually all of you, the surrogate and you as potential parents, are going to be really excited and proud about this. So you want to be treated with respect. That's really, important. So you'll create a birth plan, you'll be at the birth, and you absolutely will be at the birth. And it is an absolutely amazing moment, the birth. I'm not sure I can talk about it without welling up, actually. So
I've been there, guys. I've been there. It's emotional, a bit squeamish, but it's emotional, and there is nothing more beautiful than holding a little baby, which is yours as well.
It is. And I remember, friends have had babies, recently, and they're lovely and they're so sweet, and you hold them. But, after a while you think, okay, right, I've got to get on with some jobs now. Here you go, have it back. But when I remember those moments when my girls were born, and me and my husband just spending hours just staring at them, they blink, and you're like, oh, this is the most amazing child that's ever existed. And it is absolutely wonderful. The birth, those early newborn days are what it's all about. And that's what it's all about for surrogates as well. That's what they want it for, so that you can have that. Then after the birth, I think it's really important to think about how much contact you want with your surrogate. Stay in touch. You will have formed a really, positive relationship, and you'll want to stay part of each other's lives. There's no set formula for that. It might be that you see each other once a year. It might be that you see each other every couple of months. It completely depends, and you'll know what's right for you. But it is really nice to have that long-term relationship. And I think really, importantly, talk to your child about their origins from as early as they can. I know with my girls, I kind of was talking to them about it when they were little babies. And it's just, there's a lot of research that shows that the earlier you talk to children about their origins, the more normal it is. And the research says that there really are no kind of negative connotations of modern families for the welfare of children. They grow up just as confident as anybody else. But what is important is you having confidence in the way you talk to your child. So talk to them in age-appropriate language, make them understand how special their journey is, and just normalise it.
And there's no getting around the fact, chaps, that you're going to have to tell your child all about your surrogate, okay? They're going to have that. These children are going to be special. They're going to have a remarkable journey, and being open with them, telling them all about it. You're going to be able to give them pictures of them when they were little babies, when they were little embryos with me. It's going to be a remarkable little story that you're going to tell, and I would love to hear your stories once you've got your family and it's all been completed. So then, moving on a little bit, back to the IVF process. Why come to us? Why come to care? Because we do exactly that. We're able to care for you in a manner which not everyone can. We understand the surrogacy process. We understand you guys as the intended parents want to come through, want to get cracking. You've got anxieties everywhere, as we saw from your responses earlier. You're feeling totally overwhelmed. Well, we will help remove some of those anxieties and really help you throughout the whole process. You will have seen the video of Chris and Les with their surrogate Anna at the start when you were signing up to this. Now, this is just one of our success stories, and taking these guys, which are absolutely fab. We love Chris and Les, and their journey was just remarkable, and they've got a super surrogate, and Eddie, their little one, is just absolutely beautiful. And if we can help you as well, it would be an absolute delight to be able to do that. A few little things about why we come here. Right, this person you're looking at now, this is Hayley. Some of you might have spoken to a few friends who've hopefully been through the process. This is the girl you hear all about on the fertility side, okay? She's our surrogacy coordinator, and she's an absolute superstar. She's all about relationship building, same as Natalie, and Surrogacy UK, looking after both of you going through this whole process. Absolute superstar. She'll be there to hold your hand through the whole process and make it as simple as possible. We want to remove any stresses. The last thing we want you to do is worry about what's going on here in the fertility clinic. We're very good at what we do, and Hayley's the one who just facilitates that whole process. We are very good at what we do, and I'm very proud of our results to show you that we're good at what we do. We have a 50% success rate with the surrogacy process. So 1 out of 2 times, it works. It's pretty good, guys. And this is all down to the expertise of the guys here at the clinic. We've got a huge team. It goes from the doctors to the nurses to the scientists to the counsellors who you're going to meet, who are really going to support you through this process. It's a massive team effort that goes into it. You've got your team with your surrogate. You're going to have the best team here to look after you in the baby making bit. And most importantly, we love working with Natalie and her organisation. The work you do forming that team with the surrogate is so important, and we've got so much confidence in supporting you all going through the IVF process, knowing that we've got a great team there to put some embryos back inside. You're going to be so tight then for the rest of the pregnancy, and it's all going to be just wonderful. And when you come back with your baby with the team, that's where we start crying, okay? So, few things to consider about going abroad. We've touched on it a little bit with Natalie already. Obviously, we've got difficulties bringing the baby back home, going through the High Court. It is a lengthy legal process when you do that. It's so much simpler, as Natalie's story tells you, staying in the UK, keeping it in the local courts, not needing to get involved with all the lawyers and all that malarkey. Natalie, do you want to quickly finish that one off?
Yeah, just to say that obviously, if you are looking into going overseas, you really need to be aware of the risks. And what we've seen in recent years and months is this real kind of boom and bust style economy around overseas locations, where you'll get surrogacy pop up in a low-cost destination like Nepal, and then what will happen is there'll inevitably be some kind of PR crisis, and that will then trigger everything shutting down and surrogacy moving to a new pop-up location. And obviously, you've got some really serious ethical considerations there. You know, what is your confidence that surrogates are really going into this with free will, without coercion, that they're being properly looked after? But you've also got some risks for yourself as well. I know that in India, couples have been caught out with their embryos. Kind of, they can't get their embryos because they're between 2 laws or changing laws. And it is quite a risky process, so you need to be careful. Such
an important point, which I nearly forgot. We see lots of couples who have started the surrogacy process abroad. They've created their embryos, and then they want to bring them back into this country, and we're not able to do it. For the egg donor may have been paid lots of money to donate her eggs. That's illegal in the UK. You can't be doing that. For that reason, the government block us bringing the embryos back in here. It's really important to consider every point of going abroad if that's what you're considering. There are many obstacles to bringing things back in, and there's nothing worse from my side telling our potential patients that, no, I'm really sorry, your embryos are in whichever country they are. We can't bring them back into this country, and the devastation is awful.
Yeah, because, I mean, you get emotionally connected to your embryos. Well, not everybody does, but I did. I remember I absolutely loved those embryos. I actually saw them being kind of carried through a little canister, and I fell in love with the canister. So, you know, you put a lot of emotional and financial investment into creating your embryos, and to suddenly be in a situation where you can't access them and you've got to start all over again, I can't even imagine how stressful that would be. So yeah, you need to be careful. And then of course, cost and timelines. So looking at costs, there are obviously low cost destinations, but the risks of those are extremely high. So you need to be very, very careful there. If you're going to places that are more kind of established, like California, you are looking at minimum £100,000 for surrogacy over there.
And what sort of cost would these guys be looking at paying for the expenses of the surrogate in the UK?
So in the UK, the cost would be around £7,000 to £15,000 for expenses. There's no set amount because it completely depends on the circumstances of the surrogate. So, for example, if your surrogate is a stay-at-home parent, then you're going to have much cheaper expenses. Yeah. Whereas if your surrogate's a corporate lawyer and you are compensating time off work, you're going to have much higher expenses. Yeah. You know, if there's a lot of childcare, that might impact it. So it really, really varies. But that's the kind of range that you would expect to see for reasonable expenses. So the
IVF process is quite similar. It's around £10,000, which, all being well, if we've collected lots of eggs from a donor and we've used your sperm, we've got lots of embryos fertilised, that's your family done. That is your IVF process complete. And then it's a case of thawing them out, putting them back inside the surrogate, and hopefully having success straight away. But as we are so successful, you don't really have to come back too many times to complete your family. So initially it's quite an expensive one-off cost. Compared to going overseas, I think we're reasonably cheap. I expect you could double that or triple that if you were going to go to the US. Same with the surrogate, so it's a lot more expensive going abroad. And this is the myth busting we're doing today. This is why we're talking to you about keeping it at home, going through the journey with us here.
And that final element of cost is probably the surrogacy organisation fee. And at Surrogacy UK, it's £850 to join the organisation. If you were going to go overseas, you'd be in tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds for that.
So I've just put up a slide there, guys. We have a specific person here at the clinic who handles all these inquiries that we take. If you want more information, come and contact Anita. What we will do at the end of this is we will send out the slide deck to you, so you'll have a copy of all these slides. What I've hidden is everything we've been saying. This is on different slides. We'll open up all of those. A bit texty for this kind of thing, but you'll be able to read it all for yourself at home. There will also be a recording of this webinar. We've gone a bit longer than I thought we were going to go on, but yeah, we're quite a chatty couple. So I hope you've enjoyed that. What we do have and have had sent over are lots of questions. So let's have a little look.
Do we have time as well for questions to see if people's emotions have changed at all?
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe we'll take a question whilst people type and say, you know, having heard all of that, and I appreciate it's probably still quite a lot of information to digest. How are people feeling now about surrogacy and kind of undertaking that in the UK? I'm going to have to put my glasses on actually for this bit.
Right then, we need to go through all these questions. Guys, you've sent loads of questions over, and I'm really sorry, we're not going to be able to get through all of these tonight. What we will do, however, is I'll be getting back to you tomorrow. So all of these questions you've sent in, let me take a little sample of them now, and tomorrow, promise, you'll get an email from me, and I'll answer all of those. Okay, I hope that's all right. So just looking at these, right, we've got a question saying, do you guys need to live in the UK to be eligible to have host surrogacy treatment here? So we kind of touched on this in the presentation. Yes, to have surrogacy treatment in the UK, with us, at least one of you must be domiciled in the UK. Okay, we've seen from some of the inquiries that were coming, we know some of you are from an international country at the moment. So yeah, one of you, you're your partner, must be domiciled in the UK. Natalie, is that anything different from Surrogacy UK?
It's quite similar to Surrogacy UK, but actually we ask that you're living in the UK as well to join Surrogacy UK.
Okay.
So we're a bit stricter on that.
Okay. All right. So IVF question. How long do you have to wait to find an egg donor. Okay, so we have two different types of egg donor who come through with us at the clinic. We get those couples who come in and they share their eggs. The couple will keep half the eggs themselves, donate half of the eggs to you guys. They're called a sharer couple. We could probably find one of those within 3 months for you. However, we get these phenomenal women called altruistic donors. Bit of lingo there. That means these are ladies who are going to come in and they're going to donate all of their eggs to you. They are a little bit more difficult to find because they're not coming through the treatment for themselves, so they're going through the IVF process just to donate the eggs. Something really we usually find an altruistic donor within 6 months, but Natalie told me something absolutely fascinating just before this. Do you want to just tell the guys what you were telling me about your surrogates?
Yeah, so often actually at Surrogacy UK, our surrogates will donate eggs for other teams. So, for example, actually Jenny, the lady who helped me, she did it. So we were her first couple, and she's since gone on to help 2 other couples. And while she was in the middle of kind of obviously not going through treatment herself at that time, but while she was getting to know one of her couples, she did egg donations for another team at Surrogacy UK. So a little boy was born through that. So yeah, and that's actually really common. They do that a lot. They're pretty cool. Surrogates are amazing ladies.
Nothing ever ceases to surprise me about what humans can do for one another, and
I do think surrogacy does bring out those two things, kind of the wonders of human resilience, how we get through those ups and downs, and actually just the kindness of strangers as well.
Absolutely.
And that's the egg donation as well.
So then, right, we've got a question saying, is your personal life brought into question, such as your lifestyle, home life, and work, like the adoption process? They must be talking about the surrogacy process, saying, do you go into all of those background checks or anything? Are you asking for more details about their personal life?
So it's not like the adoption process at all, I would say. When you're getting to know a surrogate, it is really important that you're completely honest. So absolutely, you should feel free to be yourself and tell them all about you, and visit their house and they visit your house. But it's not like an exam process, So no, it's not like adoption. Obviously, we have checks and balances when people join, but that's just looking for really exceptional things that you would want us to red flag as an organisation.
Absolutely.
But we do not scrutinise and judge. Absolutely not.
So we've kept you all nearly an hour. I bet you're dying for some dinner or a glass of wine.
Should we look at those words? I'm dying to see if anyone's how the emotions came through at the end before we go. So I'm excited, motivated, brilliant.
Awesome.
We've achieved the goals. That's good. Much more hopeful and enthusiastic about surrogacy in the UK. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we wanted. Thank you.
What about that one, Natalie? It says, yes, thank you. Is age a factor for surrogacy? My husband is 26, now I'm 25, but we've been together for 8 years.
No, not at all. I mean, I'd like to hear your view if there's anything from a clinical perspective around age, but certainly not from a view of intended parents. We've actually had some, so we have a whole range of ages at Surrogacy UK, and we actually have some wonderful stories of some couples who have just been through so much and actually ended up finally becoming parents in their mid-50s.
Wow.
And that was tough, and they've just been through a lot. So, it does happen.
So I've just got one there for me. It says, can you just remind me how much the IVF process was? It's a little bit difficult for me to say that. I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's around £10,000. However, if you have an egg donor, if you've got someone you know, a sister who wants to come in and donate her eggs for you, then it's cheaper. Okay, it's more expensive when we have to go off and find an anonymous donor, especially for egg sharers, because we pay for their IVF treatment to come through. When someone shares their eggs, it's all free of charge. So if you know someone, if you're friends with a couple who are going through the IVF process, can't afford it, we will provide the IVF treatment to them free of charge if they're willing to donate half of the eggs to you guys. So I hope I've answered that question. Have we got any more?
I think there's a question there. Can the surrogate claim a child after X amount of years? Once a parental order is granted, that is final. So absolutely not, no. Hope that's a nice, clear answer for that.
I love this one. I fear that the only people that could have a baby were the rich and famous. You've alleviated those fears. Awesome. That is exactly what we're doing here today. We're not all Elton John and David Furnish here. You're real human beings, okay? And that's exactly why we're doing this today. We're doing it to myth bust, make it simple, and that's what the process is. And I'm glad you've had a good you've had a good experience tonight. You've heard hopefully some things which are going to inspire you and motivate you to get on. Come and speak to Surrogacy UK. Please, any questions about the fertility process, fire them my way. But I think tonight has been brilliant. And Natalie's awesome, as you can all see. And I'm so grateful for you coming.
Thank you for having us. It's really good. It's been lovely having a chat anyway. So thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, night. Have a lovely evening. Send the questions coming. Obviously, Anita's details. Oh, can we pop those up? Contact this girl. Any questions? Send her an email in the morning. Give the clinic a call on that number. Obviously, Surrogacy UK. If you've got any questions and you want to get hold of Natalie, you can send them through to Anita, and we will pass those on to Natalie. And I'm sure she will love to answer those in her spare time.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, have a lovely evening. Take care. Night.
Thank you.